Hello and welcome to Infocus. I'm Bradley Valenaki. We're talking about power this time around, and I'm privileged to have with me in the studio once again the Managing Director of PNG Power Limited, Flagon Bekker. Sir, thank you very much for joining me once more, and also Mr. Isikeli, Taureka, the Managing Director for Kumul, Consolidated Holdings Limited, the mother company that looks after PNG Power and all government business under it. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming onto the program.
Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so we're talking about the power sector revolution, and of course, we'll start off with you, Mr. Taureka. Outline some of PNG Power's plans heading into the future, basically.
Okay, thank you. Let me put it this way. Kumul Consolidated Holdings is the mothership. It holds the government's shares in 9 SOEs, including PNG Power. So our role really is to make sure that they're providing a profit, paying dividend back to government, and providing the necessary services efficiently and on an affordable basis to Papua New Guineans. Ultimately, the shareholders of these SOEs are the people of Papua New Guinea. So we're not only there to protect their interests, but to ensure that each of these SOEs is delivering what they're supposed to be delivering to the public, be it water, power, sewerage, airline services, insurance. Those are the things that improve the quality of life. So for us, I think try and just break it down is we are looking at each of the SOEs to try and reform them. There's a government policy out there in terms of SOE reform, and it really focuses on strengthening the governance and accountability of the SOEs. I think it's quite important. It's also about ensuring that we've got the right mix of people on the boards with the right skill sets. It's ensuring that there's accountability, that the boards of these SOEs are driving the management to achieve certain performance measures that are agreed to. And it's really about making sure that they have KPIs, key performance indicators that we can measure and make sure that we can continue to support and invest in these companies. Okay. That's at a very broad level.
Looking at it. Okay, so Mr. Bekker, you are the new kid on the block. You've just been here in Papua New Guinea just over a year, I assume. And, there's much pressure talking about the deliverables, basically. And power is a necessity in Papua New Guinea. And the government has an ambition to see that 70% of the population is connected by 2030. Going forward, in implementing this, are we on track?
I believe we do. And Bradley, can I just say thank you for letting us back on your show. It's good to be here. Yes, the Vision 2030, it is on track. We're going to have to reform the sector to make sure that we can accelerate. What I mean by reform, it's going to be important that we create competition in the upstream generation space. We're going to create competition in the retail space later on. And the only way to do that really is we're going to need to unbundle PNG Power into 3 businesses: a generation business, transmission and distribution business, and a retail business. And we're on track to meet our goals here in 2022-23. What that will do, the competition upstream will drive down the cost of power. The competition in the retail space, when the time is right, will drive down tariffs. So the way we'll drive down tariffs is through competition upstream and downstream, and by unbundling PNG Power.
All right. So since we last spoke, working in partnership with the provincial governments, has that taken off, or has there been some delay in that regard?
No. We recently made some announcements in the press around this very topic. We're proactively working with 3 provincial governments at the moment to understand how we can partner. Because, of course, with 13% of the population in PNG being connected, and that's not good enough, we're all going to have to work together across power sector, but also with government, provincial, national, so that we put that goal front of mind. So we're working with 3 or 4 provincial governments right now to understand how we can bring them into the solution.
All right. So, Mr. Taureka, how is the power sector important in the bigger picture of government in as far as transforming the country is concerned?
It's quite important. We need to increase access to electricity. Typically, you'll see that growth in GDP and growth in power correlate to each other. A country can't develop at the pace it wants to without, the right infrastructure in place, affordable infrastructure, a better customer appreciation of what we're trying to do in terms of rolling out the network. But at the end of the day, it's about quality of life. If you don't have power, it's very hard for us to develop Papua New Guinea in terms of the government's expectations of its medium-term plan and its overall strategic plan.
Of course.
So most important, yeah.
All right. So, Mr. Bekker, you spoke about the quality of the service, and really there have been times where the public has criticized PNG Power for this. What are the sort of projects that you're looking at that underpins the sort of development and revolutionizing the power sector in Papua New Guinea?
So the power sector in Papua New Guinea is not any different to power sectors around the world. And the power sector around the world has gone through a revolution over the last 15 to 20 years. The way to look at it, the way to understand this, is go and look at share prices of utilities in Germany, in the UK, in North America. They've gone sideways at best. If anything, they've lost shareholder value because of this revolution. Revolution in the cost of renewable power. It has fallen off a cliff over the last 10 to 15 years. So the future in PNG is an energy mix, as I explained before, but of course renewables will play a very important part going forward. So the way that we're going to position PNG in the power sector over the next 20, 30 years is we'll leapfrog. We're going to leapfrog technologies. We're going to bring technologies into this space over the next 2 to 3 years so that we can take advantage of the decentralization phenomenon of power. That means more solar, means more renewables, hydro, gas, of course, will have an important play, energy mix. But technology will have a big play. And then, as I said, for us to take advantage of that, really, PNG Power must reform. And we're going to reform PNG Power by unbundling her into generation, T&D, and retail.
Of course, it's just the law of nature. Dinosaurs couldn't adapt and they ceased to exist on planet Earth. Great discussions there, gentlemen. We'll go for a quick break and come back on the other side with more. Welcome back. This is Infocus, and we still are discussing matters of power, electricity. Basically, the government perspective, of course, from KCH, and we have Mr. Isikeli Taureka with us. Going forward, some of the reforms happening in as far as power is concerned, but also the SOEs.
Good. Before I get there, I just wanted to come back to Flagon's point about energy mix. I think it's important for the viewers to understand that in the range of energy mix in terms of the cost of that energy over the full life cycle of a particular form of energy, hydro is the lowest, and we've got an abundance of hydroelectricity resources here. Right, and as you go up in terms of the costs again, then you get renewables, and at the far end, the most expensive is your thermal power generation. So our view from the KCH perspective is to try and rebalance it so that we have more on renewables. We have a lot of gas in Papua New Guinea, and I see that as a transition fuel to get to hydro. So eventually we should have hydro and a mix of, let me say, solar, battery, and thermal. But trying to change a mix and make sure it's affordable and reliable for consumers in Papua New Guinea. So really want to land on that point. A lot of hydroelectricity resources here, and we just need to make sure that we're investing wisely in those. Now, coming back to the SOE reform itself, it's important for viewers to understand that a lot of the SOEs have been perennially undercapitalized and have liquidity issues. So from KCH perspective, one of the first things that we want to do to make sure that the SOEs reach their full potential in terms of delivering services, fix up the balance sheet, and fix up their liquidity. So we have about $500 million of funding available to us over the next 3 years. And our role is to make sure that we're investing into the SOEs so that they can perform and deliver their services. Critical for us is PNG Power, because it's been underinvested for such a long time, and the infrastructure is now outdated and not performing. So we want to put as much money as we can into PNG Power, and I'm working with Flagon on that, because overall the government has a 70-30 target, 70% access by 2030. And what that requires is investment in generation and distribution and transmission in the order of $1 billion. So our job is to at least get the right project mix, get the right funding around it, and then PNG Power just gets on with the job of reinvesting in our infrastructure. Most important, because as a country we need to get electricity out. Businesses depend on reliable, clean power. Quality of life improves for all our people when they have access to power, and that's seen in other countries as well. I kind of mentioned, in terms of where we are in terms of access by the population, we're below 15% access to grid power, and our near neighborhood Indonesia is roughly about 85-90%. And that's an archipelago of many islands. So if you're flying from Singapore to Port Moresby on the evening flight, you'll see lights all the way till you come to our side. And largely we don't have the big population, but also we just don't have the power that we can put out there for people. So right. Now, in terms of reform itself, there are some other important things that need to be done, and I'd like to share this with the viewers, is that if you don't have the right boards, you don't have the competencies at the boards, you won't be able to hold management accountable, and at the end of the day, companies will underperform. So we see that in the private sector. So one of our key focuses is to make sure we've got the right skills matrix on all the boards. We'll do an annual assessment on them, and we'll put KPIs across them, because I think at the end of the day, Papua New Guineans want to see, what are these companies doing? Are they delivering their services? Eventually, we'll put these up on the website where the public can see it. So this is one way of making sure all the SOEs are transparable and also accountable as well.
Of course. And you spoke about the lack of support, that financial supports that's going to PNG Power, obviously, and as a business of government, they also need to give back what is due to government, and of course, ultimately, for service delivery to the entire Papua New Guinea. Has PNG Power been delivering to expectation, and how much is government giving to PNG Power on an annual basis?
Okay, I think the important thing to understand is that we're trying to fix up a legacy of underinvestment in PNG Power. So that's the prime focus, and Flagon and I have talked about it. We're firstly to invest in grid stability, and then in upgrade and remediation of the network. In our plan, it's about $1 billion kina. Yeah, yes. That we need to put in there over the next 3 years. And we are lining up the funding for that.
How much?
About $1 billion kina over 3 years. And about 150 million kina of that we need to put in straight away to make sure that we've got grid stability in Port Moresby and in the Ramu grid as well.
Of course, and Papua New Guineans would be asking, how soon will that happen?
These things, big investments like that, take time. You've got to make sure you're doing your proper, pre-project assessments, making sure you're executing correctly. So some of them are going to happen within 6 months, some beyond 6 months. But I'll leave that to Flagon because he's at the sharp end to deliver these projects.
All right. Yeah, Flagon.
Yeah, so Mr. Taureka is correct. About 150 million kina will be injected into my business in the short term. We're going to spend that on hardware. And if you remember last time we spoke a little bit about the 3 R's. We're going to refurb, we're going to replace, we're going to repair. And so we're ready to go. We're ready to go. Our plans are laid. We're already started looking at the procurement processes. We know where the hardware needs to go nationally. We've prioritized around the people of PNG. So our plans are in place. We're ready, and we know what we need to get. And now we're just waiting for that capital to hit our bank accounts, and then we'll go through a structured procurement process, a transparent process. But just to support Mr. Taureka's comment, we'll be spending 150 million kina, but it takes time. When you fix things, it takes time for that to be felt at the sharp end. And I've appealed to your viewers and to the people of PNG a few times in different media. And what I've asked them is and I know that out of all the people I know, they deserve a fast answer and a fast response. But I've been honest from the beginning. I need you to be patient. We will fix it. We know what to do. It is just going to take time.
Of course. And we as Papua New Guineans, we work on the land, so we know when the harvest is right, it's right. Time for harvest will come. All right, you're watching In Focus. We'll take a quick break and come back on the other side with more. Welcome back to In Focus. Now, discussions on power in Papua New Guinea, electricity, the new energy bill that was recently passed in Parliament. Mr. Taureka, how does that sort of captures the needs of electricity, local consumption for us here in the country, and also the bigger picture?
It's a landmark bill. I think time has come now to have that bill in place because as of now, PNG Power has been performing not only the provision of service, but the regulation of that service as well. So the way I see it playing out is that the regulatory technical standards, certainly the tariffing and how that's sort of regulated and constructed, residing within PPL, we'll sort of carve that out and put that into the new energy authority. It will have wide-ranging powers. It will be there to make sure that that when we're investing in power, that we're putting the right processes around that in terms of making sure we've got competitive power in place into the future, but also to make sure that it's allowing space for other players to come in on a framework that everybody can see that's transparent. And PNG Power in turn then becomes a competitor in the landscape. Right now it's a competitor and a regulator, and so we want to carve that piece out. From the community consumer protection side, then you'll also have ICCC playing its role as well.
Of course.
But I'll hand over to Flagon because he's working on that now, so he can probably give you more details.
So, Mr. Bekker, where does PNG Power fit in all of this under this new legislation? Obviously, you're a regulator and you're also participating in business in all of this. How does PNG Power fit in all of this?
So, I'd just like to emphasize what you're referring to there and what Mr. Taureka said. We're a player, but we're also the ref and the umpire. And as you know, that doesn't work very well. We're very excited about the bills that have come through Parliament, the creation and the transferal of our regulatory authority to the NEA, because it's exactly what this market needs. PNG Power's future is we're going to be an IPP, independent power producer. We're going to have a power purchasing agreement with the entity, which now is called the NEA. We're going to compete fair and square. We were not going to be the umpire and the referee and the player. We're just going to be the player. In T&D, we will look at operating and maintaining those assets as well as we can, and I don't see much change there because remember it'll be a separate business. Yep.
Before you continue, for our viewers watching out there, what is T&D?
Transmission and distribution. So in transmission and distribution, those are the poles and the wires that connect the generator to the customer. And then in retail, as I said to you, we're going to separate that business unit out in the medium to longer term, and that will be independent as well. So PNG Power will partner with the NEA for as long as it takes to transfer our people, our skills, our knowledge to them. We'll do that as fast as they are able to do it, and the mechanism we're going to use to do it is through a subsidiary. So we've created a subsidiary. We're going to transfer people, processes, and systems, and that is the entity that will help us to transition, and ultimately we will take that new baby and hand the new baby to the NEA.
All right. So looking at the bigger picture in terms of the energy law, which was recently passed, Mr. Taureka, what does it, if I'm, just a Papua New Guinean looking at it, what does it mean for me?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends, as a Papua New Guinean, where you want to be. Are you a consumer, or are you going to start your business to take advantage of the unbundling of PNG Power, or do you want to compete? I think one of the things that we've found, and not only in this jurisdiction but other countries, is that monopolies like PNG Power, maybe Water PNG, tend to not be as efficient unless they have competition. But by their dominance and presence in the market and sort of the resource base they have, they tend to crowd out, interest from private investors. So what this does is it does put regulation back inside an independent entity. What's the long-term picture? I think it's going to be lower power prices. That you can have generators that are competing with each other. The transmission and distribution probably needs to be, you could crowd in investment there to make sure that we see full transparency around the costs of that particular infrastructure. But I think consumers will have choice. And I think at the end of the day, I hope in the future that we have an interconnected grid between Ramu and Port Moresby, because I think then you'll have true competition. You'll be able to buy power, doesn't matter where you are on the grid, from the Port Moresby grid or the Ramu grid, and I think that's the ultimate goal. We'll see full price competition and power competition as well.
Of course, and not only that, but if I'm living underneath a power line, I would also want access to what's just passing through over my head. Just seeing it through would what will I say, be meaningless. I would also want to have that as well. And I think that's also rightful for every Papua New Guinean as well going forward.
It's a basic right. And where there's a power line running, people should have access. As you know, it improves quality of life. So I'd be like you too. If I saw a power line running past my house, it'd cause a lot of angst if I couldn't connect to it and watch State of Origin Rugby League. So
why not? Yeah. Okay. So power is still around, and for us Papua New Guineans, it's also a safety issue. What's the sort of safety message PNG Power is giving out to the ordinary Papua New Guineans? What's the sort of next step for us Papua New Guineans, what to do in terms of safety?
Very, very important point. The message that everyone needs to understand is that electricity kills. So we have a dedicated team, our marketing and communications team, go around the country to schools, communities, all the time. It's almost a full-time job for them where they communicate the risks and hazards associated with electrical infrastructure. In the end, what we do is we hand out pamphlets, we hand out checks, we hand out, in terms of safety checks to pupils. And, we ask them, put that safety check in your satchel. Put it in your that list, put it in your satchel. And if you come anywhere near a power line, pull it out to remind yourself of how dangerous electrical power is. So electricity kills. Leave, if there's anything, if you have any concerns, please just ring our toll-free number, and we'll come and address what's gone wrong or what hasn't gone wrong. Now, I want to emphasise one last point here around safety, and particularly what Mr. Taureka said around SOE reform again and the KPI. So we're going to make safety, EHS, environmental health and safety. We're going to make one of the top KPI. That we will, to that point, I'm now in the process of finalising a recruitment for an industry-leading EHS safety executive. So we're going to go, we've gone to oil and gas markets who have a very high safety standard, and we're going to get the best knowledge we can find, bring that in-house so that we can start delivering on our safety messages and our safety performance. And our share owner is going to hold us accountable to that metric.
Right. Gentlemen, Mr. Bekker, the Managing Director for PNG Power, and also Mr. Taureka, the Managing Director for KCH.
Thank
you, gentlemen, for coming on to the program.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having us.
Please feel free to come on anytime you want.
Certainly.
All right. This has been In Focus. If you have comments on our program tonight, you can email us on the email now showing on your screen, or you can engage with us social on our Facebook page, Twitter, or you can watch this program a little later on YouTube. But thanks for your company. On behalf of the team, stay safe. Bye-bye.